You've probably eaten avocados for years believing you were doing something wonderful for your health. Maybe your doctor encouraged healthy fats. Maybe you heard that avocados protect the heart, support the brain, and help control inflammation. And to be fair, much of that is true. Avocados are remarkable foods. They contain fiber, healthy monounsaturated fats, potassium, folate, and dozens of plant compounds that the human body genuinely benefits from. But here is the uncomfortable truth that very few people are talking about. Once you cross the age of 60, the conversation around food changes. And if nobody has told you that yet, they should have. Because the body you have at 65 is not the same body you had at 35. Your kidneys do not filter nutrients the same way. Your digestive enzymes are not produced with the same efficiency. Your medication list is often longer. Your blood vessels respond differently. Your metabolism changes. And foods that were once harmless, even beneficial, can sometimes become problematic depending on how, when, and how much you eat. And avocados are a perfect example of this. Now, before you panic or decide to throw every avocado out of your kitchen, hear me carefully. This is not an anti-avocado video. Fear of food helps nobody. The goal here is not fear. It is clarity, because there are 7 common mistakes seniors make with avocados that can quietly create problems ranging from digestive distress and medication interactions all the way to circulation issues and dangerous nutrient imbalances. And mistake number 1, the one we'll reach later, is something most seniors never see coming because the symptoms often look like ordinary aging. So stay with me, because by the end of today's conversation, you may never look at this popular superfood the same way again. Before we begin, I want to ask you something because I read the comments and I genuinely learn from the experiences people share here. How old are you today? And how often do you eat avocado? Is it occasional? A few times a week? Every day? Tell me below because your answers often reveal patterns that surprise even healthcare professionals. Now let's begin with mistake number 7. And this one starts with something that sounds healthy on the surface, but becomes more complicated with age. Mistake number 7. Assuming that because avocado is natural, more is automatically better. This idea is everywhere. If half an avocado is healthy, surely a whole avocado is healthier. If one avocado toast feels good, maybe 2 is even better. That logic sounds harmless. But biology is rarely that simple. One of the biggest nutritional misunderstandings in modern health culture is the belief that healthy foods operate outside the rules of physiology. They don't. Even healthy foods interact with calories, hormones, digestion, and metabolism. An avocado, despite its reputation as a miracle food, is still an extremely energy-dense source of fat. Now let me be very clear. The fats in avocado are largely monounsaturated fats, particularly oleic acid, the same heart-friendly fat found in olive oil. These fats are generally beneficial and associated with improved cardiovascular markers. But beneficial does not mean unlimited. A medium avocado contains roughly 240 to 300 calories depending on size. Most of those calories come from fat. And after age 60, your body handles calories differently than it once did. This is not failure. This is physiology. Muscle mass naturally declines with age in a process called sarcopenia. Since muscle burns calories even while resting, losing muscle means your resting metabolic rate gradually decreases. In simple language, your body now burns fewer calories doing the exact same things. Many adults continue eating according to the appetite and portion habits they developed decades earlier without realizing their metabolic needs have changed. And this is where healthy foods can become surprisingly deceptive. I once spoke with a gentleman named Robert, 68 years old, who was genuinely frustrated. He exercised regularly. He avoided fast food. He rarely ate dessert. Yet over 5 years he had gained nearly 20 pounds and couldn't understand why. When we looked carefully at his eating pattern, one detail stood out. He was eating 2 large avocados almost every day, not because he loved overeating, because he thought they were essentially free health food. He had been told healthy fats were protective and assumed quantity didn't matter. What he never realized was that those avocados alone added nearly 500 calories daily to his intake. That doesn't sound dramatic, but nutrition problems rarely arrive dramatically. They arrive quietly. An extra few hundred calories each day becomes several pounds each year. Over time, that contributes to abdominal fat, rising insulin resistance, increased triglycerides, and higher cardiovascular burden. The irony is painful. People trying hardest to eat healthy sometimes create metabolic stress accidentally through excess quantity. The practical takeaway is simple. Enjoy avocado, but think in servings, not symbols. A sensible portion for most older adults is roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of a medium avocado. Enough to benefit, not enough to overwhelm. Now, the next mistake is something most people never associate with avocado at all. It involves your mouth, your immune system, and a reaction that can appear suddenly after decades of eating avocado without a single problem. And if you've ever noticed tingling or itching after eating avocado, pay very close attention, because mistake number 6 may explain exactly why. Mistake number 6, ignoring subtle allergy signals that appear later in life. Most people believe food allergies belong to childhood. Peanuts, shellfish, severe swelling, emergency rooms. But aging immune systems tell a more complicated story, and avocado occupies a fascinating place in that story. There is something called oral allergy syndrome. Doctors sometimes call it pollen food syndrome. And it is far more common than most people realize. Here's what happens. Certain proteins inside avocado resemble proteins found in environmental pollens, especially birch pollen and in some cases latex. If your immune system has spent decades becoming sensitized to those substances, it may begin reacting to avocado proteins as though they are the same threat. And here's what surprises people. You may have eaten avocado your entire life. No problem. No allergy. No concern. Then suddenly in your 60s or 70s something changes. A mild itch, a strange tingling, a scratchy throat, maybe mild lip swelling. And because the symptoms are subtle, many people dismiss them. They blame seasoning, or dry mouth, or coincidence. But your body is often communicating something important, and aging changes immune behavior in ways that can make these reactions emerge later in life. The reason I want you to take this seriously is not to create alarm. Most reactions remain mild, but repeated exposure without understanding the pattern can occasionally lead to stronger responses over time, especially in people with latex sensitivity. And that brings us to something doctors call latex fruit syndrome. People allergic to latex sometimes develop cross-reactions to certain fruits, including avocado. Again, many never connect the dots. They think the throat irritation is random, the mouth tingling insignificant. The truth is that symptoms matter. Your body keeps records even when your memory doesn't. If you notice unusual mouth or throat sensations after eating avocado, mention it during your next medical visit. That small observation may prove more important than you think. And what we're about to discuss next may surprise you even more. Because mistake number 5 has nothing to do with allergies or calories. It begins with a knife, your refrigerator, and a food safety risk many seniors unknowingly create in their own kitchen. You've probably eaten avocados for years, believing they were one of the healthiest foods you could possibly choose. Maybe you slice them onto toast. Maybe you add them to salads. Maybe you've heard doctors and nutrition experts praise them as heart-healthy, brain-friendly, and full of good fats. And to be fair, much of that praise is deserved. Avocados are genuinely impressive foods. They contain fiber, healthy monounsaturated fats, potassium, folate, magnesium, and plant compounds that researchers have linked to reduced inflammation and improved cardiovascular markers. But here is the uncomfortable truth that very few people are willing to say out loud. After the age of 60, healthy foods do not always behave the same way they did earlier in life. And if nobody has told you that before, they should have. Because your body at 65 is not functioning with the same biology you had at 35. Your kidneys filter differently. Your digestion changes. Your medications become part of the equation. Your metabolism slows. And foods that once seemed harmless may begin interacting with your body in ways that are surprisingly powerful. Avocados are one of those foods. Now hear me carefully. This is not a fear video. The goal is not to scare you away from avocados. Fear of food helps nobody. The goal is clarity. Because there are 7 common avocado mistakes seniors make, and some of them are affecting people quietly without them ever realizing the connection. And mistake number 1, the one we will reach later, is something many adults mistake for normal aging. So before you eat avocados again, there are several things you deserve to know. Before we begin, I want to ask you something. How often do you eat avocado? Every day? A few times a week? Or only occasionally? And what age are you watching from today? I read the comments, and the patterns people share are often more revealing than they realize. Now let's begin with mistake number 7. And this one begins with an assumption that sounds healthy but becomes more complicated with age. Mistake number 7, believing that because avocado is healthy, more must automatically be better. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings in modern nutrition. Somewhere along the way, people began dividing foods into 2 groups: bad foods that must be restricted, and healthy foods that somehow operate outside the rules of biology. But your body does not work that way. Even nutritious foods interact with metabolism, hormones, digestion, and calorie balance. And avocado, despite its reputation as a superfood, is still an energy-dense food. A medium avocado contains roughly 250 calories, and most of those calories come from fat. Healthy fat, yes, but still fat. And after age 60, your relationship with calories changes whether you notice it or not. One major reason is muscle loss. Doctors call it sarcopenia. Beginning in midlife and accelerating later, muscle tissue naturally declines unless actively preserved. Why does this matter? Because muscle burns energy, even while sitting still. Less muscle means fewer calories burned throughout the day. So many adults continue eating according to habits developed decades earlier while their metabolism quietly shifts underneath them. And healthy foods can become surprisingly deceptive inside that mismatch. I once spoke with a retired gentleman who could not understand why his weight had climbed despite eating what he considered a nearly perfect diet. He avoided fried foods, rarely touched sugar, walked daily, and proudly ate 2 avocados almost every day because he had been told healthy fats were protective. What he never realized was that those avocados alone added hundreds of calories to his daily intake. Not enough to matter overnight, but enough to matter over years. This is how weight gain usually arrives. Not dramatically, quietly. An extra few hundred calories daily can become several pounds each year. And gradual weight gain after 60 is not simply cosmetic. It affects blood pressure, joint stress, insulin resistance, sleep quality, and cardiovascular risk. The lesson here is not to avoid avocado. It is to respect portion size. For most adults, roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of an avocado is a sensible serving. Enough to benefit, not enough to overwhelm. And what we're about to discuss next surprises almost everyone. Because mistake number 6 has nothing to do with calories. It begins in your mouth. And if you have ever noticed tingling, itching, or a strange sensation after eating avocado, listen carefully. Mistake number 6, ignoring subtle allergy signals. Most people think allergies belong to childhood, peanuts, shellfish, emergency rooms. But aging immune systems tell a more complicated story. There is something called oral allergy syndrome, and it is far more common than many people realize. Certain proteins in avocado resemble proteins found in pollens and latex. When your immune system becomes sensitized over time, sometimes after decades of exposure, it can begin reacting to avocado proteins as though they are the same threat. And this is where older adults often become confused, because they may have eaten avocado their entire lives without difficulty. Then suddenly in their 60s or 70s, something changes. A mild itch, lip tingling, a scratchy throat, perhaps slight swelling. And because the symptoms seem small, people dismiss them. They blame seasoning, or dry mouth, or coincidence. But the body often whispers before it shouts. These reactions deserve attention, especially in individuals with latex sensitivity. Doctors even have a name for this connection, latex fruit syndrome, and avocado sits on that list. Again, this is not panic. Most reactions remain mild, but ignoring repeated signals is rarely wise. If avocado consistently creates unusual mouth or throat sensations, mention it to your healthcare provider. That small observation may matter more than you think. And now mistake number 5. This one begins with a knife and your refrigerator, and it creates a food safety issue many seniors never suspect. The moment an avocado is cut open, 2 things begin happening. The flesh oxidizes, and bacteria gain opportunity. Most people cut an avocado, use half, wrap the remainder, and leave it in the refrigerator for several days. It seems harmless, but the outside skin of avocados can harbor bacteria. And when the knife cuts through that skin, microorganisms can travel directly into the flesh. Now, for younger adults with robust immune systems, this may cause little or nothing. But after 60, foodborne illness becomes more serious. Immune defenses change, recovery slows, and infections that once caused inconvenience can become dangerous. This is why food safety matters more with age, not less. A cut avocado should ideally be eaten within a day. A little lemon or lime juice helps slow oxidation. Leaving the pit inside may help preserve texture, but storing it for several days and assuming refrigeration guarantees safety is a mistake. Because bacteria do not care how expensive or healthy the food looked when you bought it. And mistake number 4 may surprise you even more, because it involves medications. And millions of adults over 60 are unknowingly walking into this interaction without realizing it.